January 25, 2010, Beirut Airport. An Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 737-8 is preparing to make a scheduled intercontinental flight ET409 on the Beirut-Addis Ababa route. In total, there are 90 people on board the aircraft, 8 crew members and 82 passengers. The aircraft is operated by a crew consisting of: the captain is 44-year-old Habtamu Benti Negas, a very experienced pilot who has worked for Ethiopian Airlines for 20 years and 11 months and has flown 10,233 hours. The co-pilot is 23-year-old Aliala Tamrat Biene, an inexperienced pilot who worked for Ethiopian Airlines for 1 year and 9 days, and flying only 673 hours. 6 flight attendants worked in the cabin of the aircraft. At 0:36 Universal Time Coordinated, Flight ET409 departed Beirut in conditions of thunderstorm activity near Beirut Airport and variable winds of 7 knots. The takeoff was carried out in stormy weather, as evidenced by the meteorological code for the transmission of actual weather reports, METR. Shortly after takeoff, Flight 409, flying in detector mode, turned to the right on a course of 315 degrees and after that, changing frequency, and once again contacted the Beirut airport controller. The dispatcher instructed
Flight 409 to turn left to heading 270.
The pilots confirmed this information, but the liner continued to climb without maintaining this course. At an altitude of 7,696 feet, the liner got into a strong turbulence, due to which it banked sharply to the left by 32 degrees and descended to an altitude of 6,597 feet. After the shaking stopped, Flight 409 began to climb again. At 0:40, at an altitude of 8,999 feet, the liner suddenly turned to the left, and the left bank continued to increase. Then the aircraft rolled over to the left by 118 degrees and rushed down. At 0:41 Universal Time Coordinated, at a speed of 406 knots, Flight ET409 crashed into the Mediterranean Sea 2 miles from the coast and was completely destroyed. Witnesses of the crash, who were at that moment on the coast, claimed that the plane caught fire in the air, then rolled over to the left and crashed into the sea. Flight 409 crash kills all 90 on board. On the morning of the next day, January 25, the Lebanese authorities announced the start of a search operation 2 miles west of the coastal village of Nama. Search work was carried out by the Lebanese Armed Forces using Sikorsky S-61 helicopters of the Lebanese Navy and troops of the UN Interim Contingent in Lebanon. On February 7, both flight recorders were found. The investigation into the causes of the crash of Flight 40 was engaged in. The Lebanese Civil Aviation Authority, with the assistance of BA, Boeing, and the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board. Lebanese President Michel Suleiman said before the flight recorders were found that the crash was not due to an explosion on board the plane. Lebanese Information Minister Tarek Maidari dismissed the notion that the plane should not have been allowed to take off in the current weather conditions, saying many other planes took off during that time period. The final report of the investigation released by the Lebanese Ministry of Public Works and Transport and submitted on January 17, 2012 stated that the probable causes of the crash were incorrect actions of the flight crew with the speed, altitude, heading and position of the aircraft due to inconsistent actions of the flight controls, which leads to loss of control and non-compliance with the principles of interaction in the crew. Due to severe fatigue and stress received during takeoff in difficult weather conditions, the captain and co-pilot were in a state of disability. From voice recorder transcripts, investigators heard pilots complaining about not getting enough rest before their flight. Captain Habtamu Benti Nagasa worked 43 out of 51 days 2 months before the disaster, which was a strong overtime and affected the physical and emotional state. Ethiopian Airlines management said the airline strongly denies the report and that it was biased, lacking evidence, incomplete, and did not provide a full account of the crash. The airline wrote in a press release issued the same day as the investigative report that the cessation of flight data recording and cockpit voice recording and the disappearance of the aircraft from radar at the same time and eyewitness reports of the fireball clearly indicate that the aircraft broke up in midair due to an explosion that could have been caused by a shoot-down, sabotage, or lightning strike. Lebanon's CAA investigators' report noted that eyewitnesses, including an air traffic controller and crew flying in the vicinity of Flight 409, reported seeing an orange light or fireball at the time and the plane crashed into the sea in the direction of that location. But, investigators later concluded that there were no signs of an explosion or fire on the wreckage. It is suggested that the impression of an explosion could have been caused by the aircraft's lights during the last steep dive, or due to thunderstorms in the area. During the climb, the captain instructed the co-pilot to turn on the autopilot. But, due to fatigue or other factors, the co-pilot did not comply with this command and the autopilot remained turned off, which became one of the fatal factors. Having executed the command of the captain to turn on the autopilot, the crash might not have happened.